The story begins as Richie awaits release. Meanwhile, a desperate search begins in the woods. Leon searches. Albert's older brother Bradley remains missing. They discover Bradley's body near the clubhouse. They freeze in horror. Tribal police arrive after Bradley is found dead. Chief Teddy Sharp recognizes his former cadet. The drive home leads toward Teddy's son Jeffrey. He greets Teddy because Bradley's death followed his father home. Teddy cannot break the news. He stays silent, telling Diane something is terribly wrong. Diane, Teddy's wife, holds him after another child dies. They absorb a loss Teddy cannot separate from his past. Later, Teddy watches old Thunderstone cadet recordings. He pours as Bradley's footage hurts. He studies every drill as Bradley's former mentor. They show boys marching with pride and purpose. They trusted Teddy completely, or nothing worked. Bradley races through a drill beside the other cadets. Then guilt replaces pride. Meanwhile, Richie's old network survives. Sterling still waits. Richie says prison changed nothing. His former crew still owes him. He rebuilds the network, needing loyal soldiers for revenge. Richie, Albert's uncle, refuses sobriety and plans revenge. His comeback has begun. Richie next visits Winchell, an independent dealer chasing street profit. Winchell expects safety, but old friendship no longer protects him. The dealer still survives alone, without any gang's protection. Winchell warns Richie that Luke controls every new member. He slumps after Richie turns violent. They collide, and Richie's restraint begins to disappear. Richie listens closely. Luke now controls recruitment. Winchell tries calming Richie, but old friendship provides no protection. Street power demands payment, or nobody receives protection. Richie suddenly attacks Winchell before anyone can stop him. The beating turns savage. Winchell pleads, but revenge now rules Richie. Winchell begs his old friend to stop before the beating kills him. Sterling, Richie's associate, escapes with him as witnesses call police. An officer intercepts them, or their escape ends. Sterling panics and shoots him. The stolen patrol car remains outside the station. They torch the patrol car, so evidence burns. Sterling struggles after murdering the police officer. Teddy watches reports link 3 deaths to their escape. Beds remain empty after both flee. Sandra, Teddy's new trainee, seeks redemption in Thunderstone. She rides toward her first tribal police shift. He tests the disgraced officer. Thunderstone rejects hesitation. He studies her cautious answer before deciding. She mentions reservation classmates. She lacks Indigenous experience after serving Tulsa. She defends 4 years of experience, refusing Teddy's intimidation. He mocks classroom knowledge that disappears during a violent call. Teddy, Sandra's trainer, warns that hesitation can kill. He refuses to soften the warning. She still refuses to become another outsider Teddy scares away. He follows the vague address despite growing danger. She follows despite distant backup and overwhelming risk. Abandoned homes and broken utilities surround their patrol route. He searches, but backup remains distant. He enters the vacant house with Sandra. She follows Teddy into the vacant house. He searches until movement breaks the silence. Jordy emerges after both officers block escape. One teenager, Jordy, wears dead-end posse markings. Teddy recognizes Jordy immediately. Teddy sees gang violence claiming another teenager. Teddy waits. Sandra searches the second teenager for weapons. Sandra, Teddy's trainee, finds the hidden knife. One weapon matters. Every stabbing risks retaliation. He still releases both boys. He refuses to destroy their families for one reckless night. She expects charges after police recover a weapon. She listens to Teddy explain his leverage. He says reservation policing survives through favors and judgment. He listens because Sandra still objects. Darius, Sandra's county counterpart, immediately tests the new trainee. He offers his number for possible county backup. Later, Sandra calls home. Family conflict still follows. She asks to speak with her father. He refuses the call. Night passes quietly before Bradley's approaching funeral. Spiritual elder Duncan comforts Chelsea through another unbearable family loss. Chelsea Blacklance, Bradley's protective grandmother, carries the community's grief. Chelsea grieves after losing her grandson Bradley, who belonged to everyone. She watches every arrival. Luke appears at the funeral and immediately draws hostility. They react when Luke enters Bradley's funeral. Luke watches Chelsea's grief, but never approaches her. He leaves before grief becomes another confrontation. Night falls after Richie returns. Chelsea immediately recognizes another threat to Albert's future. She waits, determined to protect her grandson Albert. He returns, but Chelsea's rejection cannot stop him. Richie greets his mother, expecting grief to reopen their relationship. He invokes Bradley's death and asks about Albert. She watches Richie, knowing Albert's safety depends on her. She absorbs Richie's accusations without yielding to him. She shields the children inside. She stands firm while Richie threatens Albert's future. He disappears into the night after Chelsea's rejection. Teddy, Sandra's trainer, begins touring Thunderstone's divided streets. Bull's home shelters gang members, but loyalty rules inside. They approach Bull's home. Teddy discovers Bull's captive inside the trunk. The trunk proves Bull's control, but police lack warrants. They realize no warrant means no rescue. They leave, yet Bull still controls the captive. Sandra listens as Jeffrey dreams bigger. Teddy, Jeffrey's father, doubts scouts will notice Thunderstone's teenager. They hear Diane describe Jeffrey's dangerous temper. Dulani explains Jeffrey's heritage, so Sandra understands their family. Diane says Jeffrey remains their youngest and only son. Sandra hears dispatch interrupt dinner. Diane listens to Sandra finally explain her firing. She worked beneath a powerful father who controlled every mistake. She felt protected, but her father also trapped her. Sandra, Teddy's trainee, feels exposed. Thunderstone offers no protection. She continues. Teddy stays silent. He hears Diane soften Sandra's first impression. They hear Alon threaten his family during dinner. They hurry before county deputies can take over the scene. Teddy learns Alan Graves is firing inside his home. She races because children remain trapped. Police lights approach the trapped children's home. They arrive. Teddy's trainee Sandra watches the windows. They enter Alon's home with his family still trapped. He learns their two young boys remain trapped inside. She enters to reach the trapped children inside. She clears the rooms while Teddy confronts Alon. The injured mother clings to life. She searches for two frightened boys, still hidden. She gathers both frightened boys beside her. Sandra's trainer Teddy finds Alon dead inside the bathroom. Alon's death finally ends the immediate threat. Richie uses Bradley's name to enter. Richie tells Albert he is now the household's man. Albert absorbs the praise because he feels powerless and forgotten. Albert hears his uncle lure him outside. At Bull's home, Richie presents Albert to Indian Blood Nation. Richie invokes Bradley because gangs remember. Albert hears them praise his brother Bradley. Bull watches family history tighten its hold on Albert. Bull listens to Richie promise Albert a brotherhood. Albert briefly feels belonging stronger than grief. Albert accepts their embrace. Belonging now lets the gang control Albert. Back at tribal police, Teddy processes the call. He sends Sandra home, sensing the call has shaken her. Teddy, Sandra's trainer, warns addiction keeps destroying families. He watches Sandra absorb his question. She hears him ask about her partner and father. She describes the overdose. Teddy keeps listening. He reaches across, giving Sandra courage to continue. She begins with undercover narcotics and a changing partner. He waits so Sandra can continue. Sandra's partner began stealing heroin from police evidence. She found him dead, cleaned his body, and destroyed the drugs. She hid the truth, or exposure meant professional ruin. Sandra's father arranged a quiet resignation through his influence. She still wants to serve. She listens because Teddy understands personal failure. He offers trust instead of punishment, giving Sandra another chance. Sandra hears her county colleague Katie invite her out. Sandra joins them, hoping county relationships may help later. Drinks arrive before Darius takes over. He boasts about humiliating a native suspect during an arrest. Sandra recoils when his arrest story ends in death. Darius laughs. Sandra hears the prejudice underneath. She discovers Darius personally made the notorious arrest. Darius reacts when Katie challenges him. Darius, Sandra's county counterpart, hears Katie defend Teddy. Darius claims Teddy protects reservation residents, beyond legal limits. Katie rises because Darius keeps insulting Teddy. Then Darius probes the scandal behind Sandra's resignation. Darius finally falls silent. Their patrol reaches Chelsea's home since she anchors the community. Chelsea has also welcomed Elan's 2 frightened boys. Leroy, Chelsea's eldest son, died in Iraq. Chelsea identifies Leanne, Albert's mother, whose addiction shaped his childhood. He studies Chelsea's family photographs. He finally notices Albert's increasingly troubling absence. Chelsea fears Albert remains vulnerable after Bradley dies. Chelsea makes Teddy promise that Albert will survive. Then Chelsea reveals that Richie has returned. He fears Richie will exploit Albert. She fears Richie will take Albert next. She notices Albert's old cadet uniform inside Chelsea's house. She studies the uniform Albert once wore proudly. She listens. Albert's uniform still matters to him. She leaves convinced Albert still has promise. Chelsea's house recedes as Sandra leaves. Teddy enters since the clubhouse holds answers. Teddy approaches the clubhouse through streets marked by gangs. Sandra, Teddy's trainee, enters the ruined clubhouse. Teddy searches the ruins for Jake, who remains hidden. Teddy calls into the clubhouse. Jake confronts Teddy and Sandra inside the clubhouse. Jake erupts. Every police uniform represents betrayal. Jake's rage exceeds anything alcohol could explain. Jake attacks the uniform and everything police did to Indigenous families. Jake fights after trust collapses. Their patrol continues. Teddy's trainee Sandra demands answers. Years earlier, Teddy met admired teacher Leslie West up north. Teddy trusted Leslie. The sincere coaching hid abuse. Teddy recalls Leslie mentoring Indigenous students through sports. He slowly gave Leslie complete trust. He brought Leslie home after friendship erased suspicion. He remembers the clubhouse reducing gangs, drugs, and alcohol. He remembers cadets carrying discipline and community pride. He recounts his trusted friend Leslie's abuse, enabled by access. He recalls victims exposing Leslie. He watched the scandal destroy his cadet program. The clubhouse remains after Leslie dies before trial. He pauses when Sandra asks whether Albert escaped. He says Bradley reported Leslie, while Albert stayed silent. He fears Leslie targeted Albert. Teddy notices Jake react sharply to Albert's name. Teddy hears Jake repeat Leslie's command to keep quiet. She turns when Jake suddenly threatens her. They struggle outside under Sandra's helpless watch. She rejects Teddy's blame. Teddy accepts blame after bringing Leslie home. He also explains why Thunderstone despises the police uniform. He describes his trusted friend Leslie repeating institutional harm. He respects the anger since police created it. He finishes the confession. Old cadet footage ends. New danger begins. They keep walking, but Richie remains hidden. Stephen immediately senses the danger surrounding him. Richie dismisses Stephen's pleas before Albert arrives. Stephen cannot escape. Albert faces initiation. Albert faces his uncle Richie's order to stab Stephen. Stephen hears Richie blame Luke for Leanne's death. Albert hesitates before the helpless Stephen beside him. Then Albert finally stabs Stephen before the gang. Teddy reaches the wounded Stephen. Nathan breaks when Teddy says Stephen may die. Teddy hears Nathan identify Richie and Albert. The ambulance leaves without revealing who attacked Stephen. Teddy reports Albert's uncle Richie after Nathan names him. He conceals Albert's name. Headlights race toward Chelsea's unprotected family home. Luke arrives to stop revenge against Chelsea's children. He searches Luke, trying to prevent another gang war. Luke must choose restraint. Innocent children remain inside. Luke retreats after Teddy intervenes. Luke holds one final stare over Albert. Teddy listens to Luke blame Albert himself. He says the stabbing erased the child's innocence forever. Teddy threatens Luke to protect Chelsea's children. Still, he asks Luke to stop the endless retaliation. Luke walks free. She watches Teddy release Luke without arrest. She immediately confronts Teddy for letting an armed leader leave. Teddy, Sandra's trainer, keeps Luke free to protect Chelsea's house. He hears Sandra demand prison for Albert. He fears custody will harden Albert. Meanwhile, Chelsea waits desperately for news about her missing grandson. He warns Chelsea that Albert helped attack Stephen. He blocks Chelsea from searching the reservation alone. She hears Teddy promise to bring Albert home. He listens while Chelsea begs. Chelsea, Albert's grandmother, finally breaks down alone. Bull's house now shelters Albert and IBN. Bull threatens members to protect his endangered child. Bull's room stiffens when county deputies enter. Deputies overpower Bull, crushing all resistance. Darius normalizes violence. County power shields him. One frightened suspect briefly cooperates during the search for Richie. Darius threatens Bull's household with child welfare. Darius, Sandra's county counterpart, reacts when Bull insults him. Darius responds with violence. He beats a suspect and uses the terrified household as leverage. He presses harder, trying to expose the hidden Sterling. Darius challenges the Wind River story until it unravels. Darius's questions finally expose Sterling's collapsing lie. Darius persists while her story weakens. She yields after Darius threatens the entire household. She now fears Darius's threatened child welfare report. She finally reveals the fugitive's real name, Sterling Gambler. They arrest Sterling after his false identity collapses. They leave believing their intimidation delivered a victory. Buffalo cross before Teddy meets Duncan. They lead Teddy toward Duncan as another day begins. Duncan finds Teddy carrying the whole community alone. Duncan, Teddy's spiritual elder, begins a ceremony to ease his guilt. Duncan gently interrupts Teddy's self-punishment with unexpected humor. Duncan refuses the blame. Duncan hears Teddy claim responsibility for Leslie's victims. Duncan insists Teddy's family still needs him. Duncan watches Teddy leave before properly recovering. His truck follows the buffalo herd toward home. Teddy remembers that family still matters. Teddy drives home as his son Jeffrey packs. They share an ordinary goodbye that suddenly feels fragile. Teddy approaches his son Jeffrey before the boy leaves. Then Teddy pulls Jeffrey into an unusually long hug. Meanwhile, Sandra prepares for another shift. Sheriff James Ainsley praises Sterling's arrest, asserting county authority. He names Richie as the department's next target. Sandra hears Darius propose watching Chelsea's home. Phil, Darius's cautious partner, mentions family after officers leave survivors. They resume patrol. Ainsley confronts Teddy over Richie's concealed return. Teddy defends Chelsea, despite the county deputy's doubts. He explains that Luke's contaminated heroin eventually killed Leanne. Teddy explains why Richie returns seeking revenge. They connect Richie's revenge to Luke. They confer. Teddy's trainee Sandra stays alert. Teddy leaves county headquarters without their trust. Angel remains battered after the county raid. She cooperates after county deputies take Bull's child. He promises help if she leads him toward Albert. Angel confirms Albert remains missing. He listens. Angel fears police may shoot Albert. He secures Angel's directions to the clubhouse. The road carries Richie's nephew Albert toward danger. The clubhouse felt safe once cadets trained there. Richie forbids all visitors. He claims police are now hunting both uncle and nephew. Richie promises protection, but isolation strengthens his control. Richie uses Bradley's death to control Albert. Albert hears Richie promise to make him strong enough for survival. Albert hears cruelty, protects against weakness. Richie, Albert's uncle, brings him where Leslie abused cadets. Albert hears Richie warn that trusted authorities exploit weakness. Albert absorbs the lesson after Teddy's program betrays him. Albert hears Richie reject policing as white law. Richie replaces family with gang loyalty. Richie accepts monstrosity, believing only monsters survive. Teddy and Sandra arrive outside the clubhouse. Saving Albert matters, but hesitation could give Richie another shot. Sandra, Teddy's trainee, advances despite Richie's threat. Teddy prepares to stop Richie. They enter the clubhouse and search room by room. They move deeper. Both fugitives remain hidden. Inside, Richie discusses food while police quietly surround him. Teddy spots Richie and prepares for gunfire. Deputies converge when Teddy's car appears. Albert stays close to Richie. Deputies advance outside. Darius's partner Phil advances beyond the shuttered office. Albert hears Teddy demand complete obedience from outside. Albert hears Teddy invoke Chelsea and Bradley. Sandra beckons when Teddy invokes Albert's family. Then county gunfire tears through the clubhouse. Darius loses Phil. Teddy advances deeper to create Albert's escape. Gunfire drives everyone back, emptying the corridor. Wounded officers block the path of Sandra's partner Teddy. Richie's gun stays hidden after officers expose his position. Richie invokes Leslie from hiding. Teddy rejects the idea that abuse can excuse murder. They lie wounded after Richie answers with bullets. Albert hears Sandra move him toward safety outside. Richie taunts Teddy about Leslie and draws him deeper. She radios because her team falls. Gunfire continues. Albert's uncle Richie refuses surrender. She hears Richie threaten every approaching officer. The doorway stays empty under Richie's control. She hears Richie mock a wounded father. Albert offers Richie an escape. She escapes as Teddy keeps Richie occupied. The clubhouse falls quiet around Teddy's final fight. The empty corridor hides their continuing struggle. Richie, Albert's uncle, overpowers Teddy after injuries weaken him. Richie hears Chelsea call outside. Richie falls after turning toward Chelsea's voice. She reaches Teddy after Richie's final blow lands. She finds Teddy mortally wounded beside Richie. She comforts Albert through both families' collapse. They leave after the fight ends. They move carefully through the ruined corridor. Finally, Sandra emerges after the clubhouse bloodshed. She keeps Albert close among the gathering survivors. They gather after the clubhouse shooting finally ends. She watches the aftermath beneath an emergency blanket. They stay beside dying Teddy. He dies after saving Albert costs everything.